In Mark chapter 13, Jesus and the disciples are visiting the temple. It's the last week of Jesus' life. The disciples don't know that. One of them reaches out and just says, "Look at these amazing, huge stones and these wonderful buildings." And secretly inside he's saying, "I just love being part of this." I wonder, what are the things that you find amazing or wonderful that are human-made technologies? Here on the Gold Coast, it's easy to get caught up in glitter and wonder of high-rise, particularly down on the beach. But as I'm learning from living here in the Gold Coast for a year now, there's a lot more to the Gold Coast than just that glitter strip. And what people value is not that, the ones who live here. The other weekend, my wife and I were at a dinner at South Bank, and it's pretty amazing to walk out in the magical night and there's all the lights reflecting off the river and the high rise and everything around. And you think, oh, it's amazing to be here. This is pretty impressive. But it's not the way we normally live. And there's a lot more to our lives. We said that at the end of the church year, we're looking at apocalyptic writings. And they're not normal historical writings. It's a bit almost like a waking dream or sometimes a waking nightmare. And they were written during times of severe oppression. And they're a protest literature, speaking out against the forces that think they're so strong and so powerful, they're going to be around forever. And so there's code words and code pictures that apocalyptic writings use. And this little bit from Mark 13 fits into that apocalyptic writing about destruction, about the dominant evil forces are going to be overturned. They don't win, God does. And the message is always hold firm, don't give in, don't give up. Everything will come good. At the end of Revelation, it talks about a new heaven and a new earth. Here in Mark 13, Jesus simply says, "This is the beginnings of birth pains." Things will go wrong, but it's not leading to death and destruction. It's leading to something new and life-giving. Going back to the temple, the disciples are thinking, yeah, this is an awesome place. This is where God comes down to us. This is the only place in the whole world where God comes down to us. And we're a unique, special people, God's chosen people. And this makes us great. Jesus looked at that temple and he's thinking, well, I'm God right here in the midst of you, an ordinary human as well. And I'm what makes you great. But you have no idea and you can't see that. And in fact, he told his people, not one stone is going to be left standing on another. He could look ahead. Less than 40 years. The Jewish people would revolt yet again against the Romans. They would think God was backing them, but he wasn't. And the Romans finally would capture the city of Jerusalem, and when they came in, they just leveled the temple. They destroyed it. Not one stone left standing upon another. Here's another model of the Jewish temple at the time of Jesus. You can see how it's built on the edge of the gully or the valley going across, and on the right would be the Mount of Olives. It looks very clean, our model, but in real life it certainly wasn't clean. There would always be smoke rising from sacrifices, and in those peak times like Pentecost or Passover, when there's hundreds of thousands of pilgrims flooding the city and there's thousands and thousands of animals being slaughtered for sacrifice, it wasn't a pretty or a clean place to be around, but it was still impressive. But Jesus ended up not in the temple. He ended up taken out like a piece of rubbish outside the city gates. He was arrested, he was tried, and he was taken out to be crucified, a very unglamorous death. But we say, in the light of Easter and Pentecost, whoa, this is where God comes down to us. Not through the sacrifices in the temple, through this unique sacrifice of God's own Son. giving up his own life for us, joining us in the worst possible things we can ever experience. This total self-giving, this is what makes our God great. And we say, here on the cross, this is where we are lifted up out of sin and out of our being caught up in ourselves, out of shame and out of guilt and out of false, arrogant pride. Here's love at its bottom line, and this is where we are loved and rescued and forgiven. The disciples asked, tell us when this is going to be. And Jesus wasn't interested in giving them a timetable. You don't need to know that. The important thing, you're going to be my witnesses. Your job is not to get obsessed about destruction of the temple. Your job is to be my witnesses to Good Friday, to Easter, to Pentecost. You are carrying the message of forgiveness and new life out into the whole world. That's the important thing that you'll be doing, not working through timetables of when this might happen and when that might happen. And that ties in with who we are as God's people. We all have our vocation or calling. We're called to be God's people right where God has placed us. And so it's good to do a check-in sometimes. How am I going with living out whose I am, where I am? So we do a check-in. How am I going with living out my Christian faith with the people under the same roof that I live in, whether it's my family or intimate partner or people I share a house with? I'm called to be showing love and care to them. And there's our paid work. And hopefully that ties in with who we are. If it seriously doesn't tie in with who we are, then maybe we need to look at doing something different. So in my vocation, whatever I'm doing that as a servant, as a little Christ. And in my relaxation, the people I mix with and mingle with. It's easy to get caught up in what's big and what's showy and what's beautiful and what's impressive, what's the latest technology. This little text reminds us we see beyond that or through that or below that to what's the most important. We hold on to that gift of forgiveness, that gift of God saying, you're my dearly loved son and daughter. I love you. I forgive you. And there's that final picture, the beginning of birth pains. There are times in our own lives when things fall apart, when things do not work out, when something or someone we put our hope or trust in can't deliver or won't deliver. And it's easy to get caught up in shame or depression or thinking, oh, it's not worth it. Why bother? But Jesus keeps reminding us that his new life in us and all of creation is so big that it keeps breaking out or bursting out. The beginnings of birth pains. So the final thing to think about for you is, whoa, who or what is God bringing to birth? And maybe you're called to be one of the midwives. You're called to catch this new life that God's bringing out. Or what's God bringing to birth in you? And that doesn't matter whether you're male or female, old or young. God always has new life at work in us. What's God bringing to birth in us that's new and fits in with who he is and what he does? And also in creation. Paul tells us that creation is groaning in pain, waiting for us, sons and daughters of God, to be revealed, waiting for the new life to be revealed in it. Too big to fail? Some of our technologies are impressive, but they won't give us what we need at our deepest. That's Jesus. Go in peace and keep looking and enjoying the signs of new life in you and around you. Amen.